they're talking to us about, potentially filming all that and making it way more available because we're pretty expensive when we go into a company, but a lot of people can't afford that. But if we did it on the interactive training, so we're considering doing that to make it more available to people. And then the other big thing is, some of y'all may know if you've listened to any of our podcasts or heard me speak before, in 2016, I got really, really sick and almost died. And after a lot of tests and stuff, the doctors telling me you're the epitome of health while I can't get out of bed. We found out eventually that I had what's called chronic debilitating Lyme disease. Uh, and they told me I'd never have over half my life back. That'd be the best we could get. Came across this, you may have heard of it, frequency technology called Rife, and basically gave me 100% of my life back. And so a friend of mine and I put some money into it, and then six of my clients put some more money into it about a year and a half ago. And we're about to release a new piece of equipment that the physicists and scientists have told us that there's nothing like it in the world that can bring. We can't use the word healing because we're not doctors. We can't give you drugs that'll kill you until it'll heal you because that's against the since we're not a doctor. But what we've discovered is the bacteria, virus, mold, fungus, all the stuff that's in us that doesn't belong, we found through these frequencies, if you can kill those things and get them out of your system, the body heals itself. And so we spent a couple $1 million in the last couple of years taking this where we can run 14 harmonic frequencies at the same time. So what used to take about a week to do, we can do in about 3 hours now. And so
Wow.
we're about to release those machines. So yeah, got quite a bit going on, between the leadership and the city reaching the consulting and the health stuff. So
What was the name of it?
That's
Rife, R-I-F-E?
yeah, you can Google it. It was invented originally by a man named Dr. Rife in the 1930s. And if you Google it, you'll find newspaper articles and things that say we finally have a cure to cancer. You'll find those things. And then all of a sudden it disappears. What a shocker. Um, but it's actually Tesla technology. It's just called Rife. If you can think of an opera singer, when they break a glass at a certain pitch, it shatters the glass. Well, every living thing has a frequency. And so this technology, we can set a frequency that kills those frequencies. So I mean, like we have 4-foot worms coming out of people and I mean, things with legs. I mean, it'd blow your mind what's making people sick, that we're throwing antibiotics and all kinds of stuff at. We've discovered that almost everybody we've scanned, for example, all but one person over all these years that we've done this scan that has ALS, they're all riddled with Lyme. And so what we're finding is if you can kill the Lyme, then the body starts healing itself. And now Lyme happens to be a bacteria. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into it unless you want to. I'll answer any question you want. We've been doing a lot of work with it the last few years. And we're just excited because this new machine operates so much faster and we can mass produce these where we've been making the others by hand. So, but yeah, there are people actually dealing with cancer with these kind of frequency technologies. And right now we're not doing that, but with this new machine we may, we'll see. But the chronic illnesses, we've given a lot of people their lives back that can't get out of bed. Now they're employed with children and holding down jobs. So we're thankful
some.
to be able to do that.
I know some as well that's suffering.
Will it help MS?
Does it help with MS, Ford?
Here, let me say this. Um, we don't make any guarantees, okay, just because it's not who we are. But we have seen, and we got multiple testimonials that if we can find out what's causing whatever it is, we'll just say MS in this case, okay, and you can kill what's causing the MS, and it's usually a bacteria, fungus, virus, or mold. You can almost guarantee it. And so whatever that is that's carrying it into the brain that's affecting it, if we can kill that, then the body can heal itself from whatever the disease that the doctors call it. We literally are removing the Epstein-Barr completely, eradicating it out of people, which is the one that causes mono. The Lyme is the hardest thing to deal with because they lay eggs every month and they hatch during the full moon, which what a shocker. But they're basically a weapon. And so that's the hardest one to eradicate because they're constantly reproducing themselves. Mold and things, when it gets in there, most people are around it And so they just keep getting more mold. It's not like the mold is reproducing itself. Yet once it gets in the bloodstream, it's carrying it to the organs and the brain and affecting people, because it gets carried in the bloodstream. But like I say, these frequency technology, it's been pretty amazing what we're seeing. And you can Google it. You're gonna with the new administration and the new Department of Health head, RFK, you're gonna start seeing a lot more of this stuff be mainstream. Most of us have been trying to stay under the radar because we only take referrals. We don't have websites, but you're gonna start seeing more and more people coming out publicly now because it's gonna become more the norm.
Won't be criminalized,
Well,
right?
well, the other thing, Ford, is some of these people disappear. So we kind of like having you alive. So just keep it on the down low until we can figure it out and keep you safe. Because, as I've looked online, some of these guys who come up with these alternative solutions suddenly get some chronic strange thing and disappear. So stick around. We kind of
Right,
like you.
that is true. Here's the good news. When we first started, there were 2 of us. Now we have 10 partners. And so the good news is if any one of us do disappear, it's going to continue. And typically the people that surround themselves like that,
Have you guys had any success with the diabetes?
we actually have a guy on our team that's using it right now for that. So let me put it this way. The best way to answer it is are there frequencies that kill the stuff that cause diabetes? Yes. So I'll just say that there are frequencies that you can program this machine. And the difference in the machine we're producing right now and what's already out there is it's like an Apple playlist. In other words, we're pre-programming it because it's so fast with all these things. For historically, you have to go in and individually program what you need for your frequency. But because this goes so fast, we can shoot a machine gun, you think of it that way, at a lot of different things, and we're going to hit probably the one that's causing it. Where in the past, we could only run one frequency at a time. And so we had to scan people and find out exactly which bacteria, exactly which mold, so we could set the exact frequency. But by
Wow.
being able to operate 14 at the same time, and we reconfigured our bulb, it's so much faster that we can put a playlist together like an Apple playlist, and you can pick the songs you want to listen to. And so you can pick it, and because it operates so fast, odds are one of the frequencies that are in the playlist are going to hit the bacteria that's your problem. And so if you can think it's a little bit hard to explain, but that's the simplest way I can.
Well,
Crazy intriguing. I know a lot of people would be interested
Oh, yeah.
in having that.
No, Ford, that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of conversation about the fact that our bodies has different frequencies all the way through and stuff like that. I do want to pause for a second because literally the people that you got on this call, we could spend the whole day talking about this because I know most of these people personally, and you're speaking about passion areas, man, with health and healing, and we got miracles around the table here. John's a walking miracle. He's a cancer survivor and took on a fight with Tyson, and he's kicking Tyson's butt over there. And so we got some real cool stories. But let's pause for a second, if you don't mind. Can we say a quick prayer, and then let's back up for a second and just hear a little bit about you. And I got a couple of questions for you, and then we can maybe end off going back into this great conversation. So let's pray quickly. Father God, I just want to thank you for Ford and him taking the time. I also want to thank you for the amazing team around us here this morning. They want to discover more about you and about what you're doing here, just even in this conversation. And so, Lord, I thank you for these moments and technology and how we can literally link from Thailand all the way through to Ohio and everything in between. And Lord, I pray that as we have time together, that you will distill and pull out exactly what you want to guide us and teach us. Not that you aren't already doing that, but that we're aware of it and that we hear with that ear that's tuned, I guess you could say, to your frequency this morning, to hear you and to hear what you want to say to each one of us. Inspire us, Lord, to continue to serve you where you place us. And may this morning have just a sense of your blessing and your presence as Ford shares with us. Lord, bless him as he goes. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So Ford, yeah, we're in your hands, man. I just thought that kind of just sort of, you can go wherever you want. So you can tell me just to keep quiet and go, but kind of normally we kind of go a little bit back to what was Ford like before he found Jesus? Then how did Ford find Jesus? And then what's Ford's life been like since Jesus? And then tell us a little bit about your corporate, like why corporate world, why do you do what you do? And then maybe if we have time, we can end up with a frequency conversation. So we're in your hands, man.
All right. Do you want to ask me those questions individually, or do you want me just to run with it?
Just let her rip. However you want to go. Let God lead, man.
Okay, I'm going to answer these chat questions so I'm not focused on them. And then
Okay. Yeah, I think the one is
There you go.
can be
Got
done
it.
remotely.
Yeah, there it is. It can be done remotely. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So maybe just a little bit of the story might be helpful to. So I was born and raised in Paris, Texas. Went to school at Texas A&M. I met my beautiful bride there. When people ask me to tell them about Sandra, the only way I can explain it is that she's an angel in a woman suit. Uh, so I met her when she was 17. She was a freshman. I was a senior. We got married when she was a junior. I stayed in College Station. We met at Texas A&M. I stayed there after I graduated and managed a sporting goods store that I had been the assistant manager of while I was in college, so she could graduate. So basically, put my career on hold. I don't want to put a picture in your mind that you can't forget, but I was also a competitive disco dancer, traveled all over, and so ended up teaching disco for years, and then country and western, then swing. So for 18 years, we ended up being dance instructors. And in this sporting goods store, I got a phone. Well, I moved to another store. Then I got a phone call that they were going to close down our screen printer that printed our uniforms and T-shirts and stuff that we sold, and I need to find a new one. And then a couple of days later, I got a call back from the bank saying, by any chance, would you like to take on the debt and the ownership of this company? And I was 24, um, and she graduated in May of 82. I turned 25 in April, and we took over this company that was about to go bankrupt in May. So at 25, and if I'd known the term due diligence, I wouldn't have ever done it. And I will say, purely on this phone call, and I genuinely mean it, by the grace of God, we made it. And that was in 82, when the economy was the third worst economy we've ever had. We got the Great Recession, 2008, and 82 is the third worst. So you couldn't have been much worse timing. But to fast forward over the next 16 years, we became the largest decorated sportswear apparel company in our industry in America. And on that ride to the top, always being listed first. I think number two was $190 million smaller than us. And in the 1990s, those were real numbers. And on the ride to the top, a lot of arrogance, a lot of insecurity. I tell people today, if you show me the most arrogant person in the room, I will show you the most insecure. And that was me. And
Wow.
on that
Well,
ride,
please say it one more time. That's so good.
yeah, if you show me the most arrogant person in the room, I will show you the most insecure. Because we have a way of trying to hide our insecurities. And you can, when you're in the trade journal as number one and you're named one of the top 10 business people in America and all those things, which I don't talk about much anymore, but with that insecurity, you're trying to cover up the sexual abuse, the things in your life that you've never dealt with. And ended up cheating on Sandra for a period of time. And thank goodness, during that time, I was also the spiritual gifts pastor at our church. So if you Google the word hypocrite, leadership, business consultant, my name pops up first on Google. I'm kidding. That's not true. But anyway, by the grace of God, again, I wrote this program in our church that after people would go through our spiritual gifts training, because I was teaching them 25 years ago how to use their gifts in business, not just at church. And our pastor was supportive of that. But after we would go through the class, we would do an interview with them. Two of us would interview each individual. And I was raised Southern Baptist, so what we were seeing in these interviews was way outside my norm. I didn't understand it, but it was happening. And we were seeing unbelievable healings and, I mean, chromosomes back in wombs and all kinds of stuff happening in these 2-on-1 interviews and prayer times. And one day my pastor and his wife came to me and said, we've never seen the kind of healing that takes place in our 50 years, and 33 of those were in Cyprus, Israel, and Africa, that takes place like when you pray for people. But what they didn't know is all the way home from those times, I was beating on the steering wheel saying, God, what about me? What about me? And then one day they said, you wrote this program, because they were the spiritual gifts pastors, and I took over his role with his wife. they called and said, let's interview each other. You know, we've never been through it because you developed it. And if I thought about it, I said no. But anyway, in the interview, they changed one question on me that I wrote. And when they changed it, I broke. And God showed up in my interview just like he did everywhere else and literally walked out of there. The only way I can explain it is that day, I always believed the Bible. I was raised in church my whole life. I was raised in a church that taught the good news of the gospel. Find Jesus or burn in hell. Come on, guys. That is not the good news. But anyway, so I was raised in that shame-ridden gospel. Uh, but on the day that happened, the best way I can explain it is I truly believed after that day that Paul's Damascus Road trip took place. And they still say they're 90 years old now, and I still talk to them. They live in California now, and I've told them. They asked me what I think about the wall. I said, yeah, if they'll just move it over one state and build it all the way up, I'm in favor. But anyway, they get a kick out of that. But they said, get us out first. But they still say after almost 60 years in doing ministry that they've never seen anything like what happened that day. And I would say I literally walking to the car called this other woman and cut off the relationship. And that was not an easy thing to do because I was pretty addicted. Then 2 years later, I shared with Sandra, what I had done. And I said to her, I know you're going to leave me. I don't blame you. I know you don't love me. How could you? And actually, this is 2 days I shared with her 2 days after I gave a message in Cincinnati at the convention center 4 times about transforming the city. So I gave a message, and she was at one of those. And 2 days later, on vacation, she asked me, I want to know the truth about this other woman. And I had stopped for 2 years. But I said, I'm going to tell you. And I did. And I said, I know you're going to leave me. I don't blame you. And maybe all I was supposed to do was get this thing started in Cincinnati. And now I'm done because I don't really see how God can use me after the way I felt so bad. But I'll never forget when I said to her, everything is yours. If you want a divorce, I'll give it to you. There'll be no split. It's 100%. Everything we own goes to you. All I ask is that you don't take the girls away from me. We have 3 beautiful daughters. I said, that's all I ask. That's my only request is that you let me still be with my girls. And if you ever can find a place in your heart to forgive me one day, I just want you to call and tell me. And, I was in church my whole life. I heard about Jesus and I heard about God, but I experienced Jesus that day. She looked me right square in the eye and she said, why would I leave you? I love you more than anything. I forgive you. We'll get through this. And, I'll never forget in my mind, I said, I want to be like that. I want to learn to be like my wife. What does it look like to be unconditionally forgiving and unconditionally loving? And she never wavered. We worked, to get our marriage back, and it's by far, she even says now that without that, who knows if we'd even still be married? Who knows if we'd have this kind of marriage? So, but anyway, that day I said, I'm going to change. I'm going to be the real deal. I'm not going to be the face of a Christian, and I'd already been moving that direction for 2 years. So, but anyway, she showed me that and laid down the consulting company we had, started doing city reaching. Then I picked back up doing some one-off consulting that turned into a higher demand on leadership. One of my clients asked me to do a leadership training in the city. He literally asked me, he said, when you go into companies and consult or own companies, how often do you get these kinds of results? And I said, every time. And he said, then why aren't you using this stuff to do your city reaching? I said, if those leaders really knew me, they wouldn't follow me. Because at that time, Sandra, we had agreed to never go public with our story. But later, when we were able to help individual couples, I said after a number of couples that we helped together, I said, if we went public, just maybe there are thousands of couples out there we could help. And she said, I agree, let's go help people. But this client brought 30 people in the room and we gave them a legal pad and a pen and took them through 6 days of a leadership brain dump over a 6-month period. And at the end, they said, please do it again. We want to bring our friends. So we did it again. Then the third time, someone from Kim Blanchard's company was there and they called me and said, I called Ken and told him I found somebody who's doing what we're trying to do. And he told me to offer to help you with a PowerPoint and a manual so people won't keep getting these writing cramps. So we put together a PowerPoint and a manual, and then over time, people help improve that. And so again, pure by the grace of God. I believe God told me in the summer of 2000, he was going to give us something he would take global if I would use the skill set he gave me to go help other people and not use my skill set to grow what was named back then transformational leadership. It still is. Needless to say, we probably would have named it something different if we knew everybody was going to have one 25 years later. But God has taken it global. You know, we're in lots of different countries. We work with governments, companies, education systems. It's in lots of different languages now. We've trained a lot of other people how to do it, but you know, we've never really promoted or marketed or very little, almost nothing until COVID when we had to start the podcast. If I'd known you had to have a website to do a podcast, I'd have said no. But then they told me you got to build a website to host it. I said, well, I didn't know that. But anyway, so just thankful that, you know, we have a team of people that God's given us the opportunity to impact people's lives and, you know, help them. The way we put it is if you've made some of the mistakes, because our whole team just, you know, we're riddled with mistakes. But you know, if you've made some of the mistakes we've made, maybe we can help you get past those. And if you've not made any of them, maybe we can help you not make them. And so it's
Yeah.
really just all about if we can help people overcome their failures and be more successful than maybe they would have been without going through some of our stuff. That's really our goal, and to be able to do that as many places as possible. So, you know, really finding Jesus, I knew who Jesus was. I would say I was a Christian. I might have been that guy that Jesus said, you know, you'll pray in my name, you'll speak in my name, you'll heal in my name. And I'll say, I never knew you. That might have been me. I guess I'll never know that for sure. I may ask him one day when I see him face to face. You know, but since that time, I still make mistakes. Trust me, I'm like Paul, you know, Paul says he was the biggest sinner on the planet. It's because Ford hadn't been born yet. But you know, I still I still make like I still sin like everybody else does, you know, but the difference is, you know, it hurts. You know, it's, you know, sin used to be that kind of sin used to be justifiable in your head. And now when you make them you know, when you do something, I think I understand what Paul meant when he said it. You know, a sin that used to be this big, you could minimize to this. But when you really find out who Jesus is and the Father, a sin this big feels like this. And so that's probably the best way I can put it. So before really finding the person of Jesus, the Spirit of God, the DNA, I would say I could take sin and minimize it. Now, little sin feels really big. I'd say that's probably the best way I can explain before.
That's good. And would you say that was that moment when you were in that prayer time with that couple was really where it shifted for you? Was that the kind of the key moment?
Yeah, because I had been praying over people and just watching miracles. I mean, and again, when you're Southern Baptist and you're praying for people and seeing miracles, it just doesn't fit. You know, even though I had those conversations with my pastor when I was in high school, okay, now why don't we bring people on stage and pray for them if we don't believe in that gift? I had these conversations when I was 17 years old, but he never could explain them to me. He apologized when he was 80. Later, when I saw him at a wedding, he said, "Man, I just didn't know back then what I know now." Um, but yeah, that's it. You know, when I was watching these things take place, I mean, laying hands on people and watching it, and again, beating on the steering wheel, saying, "God, what about me? I'm the sickest one in the room." But yeah, on that day, and I'll tell you what happened. One of the questions we would ask is, if you could do whatever you wanted to do with your life, what would you do? And again, I wrote all these questions, and so when they would ask me the questions, I would answer them before they finish. I wrote them. You're halfway through the question. I don't need to hear the rest of it, you know. And Anita's from Southern Oklahoma, and she's got this. My wife may be the second sweetest person on the planet, and she tells me if you ever say I'm the sweetest while Anita's alive, you'll lose all credibility. I mean, this lady's just, you know, she's just when she walks in, Jesus just walks in with her. I mean, she just embodies Jesus, and so she was asking me these questions that I wrote, and she said, "Now, Ford, if you could do whatever," of course, I cut her off. I'm doing it, consulting in these big companies. I'm the spiritual gifts pastor of the church. I got a beautiful wife, 3 daughters. And when I finished, she said, would you just hush up a minute? And I said, and she's so sweet. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I don't care how arrogant you are. If I ask you a question, it just knocks it down. And I said, yes, ma'am. I want to ask that question a little differently for you. I said, okay. She said, if you were doing whatever you knew God called you to do, what would you do? Yeah. And I broke. So
Wow.
she changed one half of one sentence and it broke me. So yeah, it was, yeah.
Change your life. Change your life. And what it sounds like is from that moment, your vision went from small to what God could do. It just seemed like there was this, through time, exponential growth.
Yeah, it went from what can I do? It's all about me. I'm God's gift to business to God gifted me in business and what can he do through that gift?
Ooh,
And
that's
so,
good.
yeah. And so from that, yeah, it was exponential growth. And again, not even trying, in our old company, our first year we did 180 something thousand dollars a year in sales. And our 16th year we did 300 million. And again, that's back when it was real. I mean, 300 million back then was a real number, but that was all. We were using the same kingdom principles that we use today. I just didn't know they were kingdom principles. So
Yeah.
we were using the same, so when I took all of our stuff to our pastor, I literally took it to him and said, by any chance, is any of this in the Bible? And he literally said, why are you asking me? I said, because it works everywhere. And I'm just not this smart. And he brought it back to me. And I took it to 3 other pastors, and they came back and said, it's not biblical. My pastor came back and said, you have no idea what you have here. The other 3 came back and apologized and said, we've never seen the Bible through this lens. And I asked them all, well, where is it? And they said to me, go find it yourself. And so we have a second training that's actually called The Missing Link, which actually puts the scripture back in to the consulting and to the training if people want to see it. We don't,
Wow.
so when we've actually trained denominations in this in churches. And so when we do Christian organizations, we go completely stained glass, completely overt. But when we're in companies and governments, we go plain glass, which is a term I think I made up almost 20 years ago. But some people would say covert. But we can do both. But we are very careful. One of that lady, little sweet Anita, one of the things she told me one time, it was around praying in tongues. I told her, I said, Anita, we prayed together a lot, and I've never heard you pray this way before, because something happened to me, and my pastor said, go talk to her. And her response was, now, darling, part of the fruit of that spirit is self-control. And I would never pray out loud like that with you, but I prayed like that with you many times.
Oh.
And so what a teaching. And so, so I apply that fruit of self-control even in the consulting. You want to give the Paul Harvey version. You're just holding back, you're holding back, you're holding back until you get that question that just releases the gospel into the company or into the country, into the government. But it's a lot easier not to have self-control. Just tell them who Jesus is. But yeah, so it was she even taught me just in one sentence, darling, part of the fruit of that spirit is self-control. I would never pray like that out loud with anybody who didn't have that gift.
Love that. Love that. Just a sweet spirit. You can hear her goal was for the gospel again, that Jesus wouldn't do something that to freak you out like that. That's good.
Yep.
Well, that's that. What an incredible story, man, and what a faithful bride. I mean, I hear already that Sandra's a better part of you. We should really have her on the screen here. For next time, we're going to book her, not you. Okay, just so you know.
I tell people, I said, if you like me, you'll love Sandra. And so yeah, she's yeah, it really is. I mean, when I say she's an angel in a woman's suit, I am not exaggerating. When people come to our home and they meet her, they go back to their companies, back to their cities and say, I never believed him. He had to be exaggerating, but I spent a week with her. He's not exaggerating. And she's the same when people are here as she is when they're not here. I mean, she's just the same person. But yeah.
And I also just love how it still touches your heart, her real commitment to you, and it's part of your testimony. And by the way, thank you guys for being transparent, and because I think it makes a huge difference to everybody who's struggling, and it's not necessarily just with infidelity; it's with anything, you know. Because I mean, you got a room full of people here today who've got different places in their walk and stuff like that. So thank you for that. You know, Ford, let's kind of begin to weave a little bit towards the business side a little bit and think. You know, you're sitting here with, you know, Marcheck's got his own company. Brad's doing a lot of work with Right for Life, and he's running up a non-profit, and so he's grinding that hard over there. Jay's owner operator, and he's out there in his truck trying to, you know, bread and butter and stuff like that. And I could go around the whole circle, but the point is that, so take us a little bit into some of your thinking right now. You without going, I don't want you to feel to do a copy and paste of your teaching and training, which is your stuff, and people can find that, and we'll make sure the links are there for them. But what would you say? How would you help you know, John and ASAP and all these guys around the circle today? What would be some of your thoughts for them as business leaders, business owners? We're in 2025. We've got some new government leadership. What's happening in your gut? What's God telling you? What are you doing currently?
Can I share screen? I'll show something to y'all.
100%. Do you have to do anything, or can you do it?
Yeah, you can.
You can just, yeah, go ahead. I don't even know if I have to do anything. I think you can just do it.
Okay, so you may have already allowed share screen. So I'll share something with you. I'm going to kind of start at the end.
As I'm getting to know you, that sounds about you right there. Let's start at the end and go to the beginning.
Yeah. And so you'll see right here. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. You know, every company I've worked with, you know, my first career, once we got that first company turned around, that's what I did. I went in and bought broken companies that would have one foot in the door of bankruptcy. So before they'd actually file bankruptcy, you know, we would buy them on the cheap, go in, put all these things in place, put a management team in place, and then go buy another one. And so that's really how we grew the company to that size. And then each of them would grow their own. But over the almost 50 years now is, you know, I've found that there's 9 common constraints in every organization I've ever been in. Now, whether you have all 9 or not, you know, but when we show these to people, they'll usually say no. And let me start with a couple of definitions to answer your question. So when I use the word organization, I'm talking about 2 or more people in a relationship. So an organization could be a marriage, it could be a family, it could be 2 best friends, a company, a ministry, a church, a school, a company, a city, or a government. So anytime 2 or more people or a nation are in relationship, that's an organization. And when we talk about leadership, we have a definition we use, but really what we're talking about is influence. Okay. And on this call, now on a lot of calls, I talk about 4 areas of influence. On this call, there's 5. Okay. We all have influence up. That could be to our boss, our parents, if we're on a sports team, a classroom teacher, but you know that they're the ones that we can influence. We influence up. Another one is influence across. That's our peers, that's our coworkers, our next door neighbors, the people we go to church with, the people that we might play sports with. The third area of influence we have is what I call down, and I hate that word, but I explain it in the training, and we do it in circles across as opposed to down, but our org charts. But you know, that's our children. That's people a teacher might have in a classroom, a coach on a sports team. And the fourth area of influence is the one that a lot of people don't talk about much, which is what we talk about a lot in the first part of transformational leadership, is the influence we have with ourselves. And that's probably for most people, for a lot of people, that's the biggest one. But the fifth area is the influence we have with God. And so if you can think about leadership as influence in those 5 areas in every organization in which we live, work, or play. So if you can kind of run, and I'll answer whatever questions you want, but if you can kind of run every question through the lens of what we call life-work balance. I tell people, lose the term work-life balance. That's the world's terms. God's term is life-work balance. You know, work is a part of life. Life's not a part of work. And then, and another thing, and then I'm going to show you this in a minute on this call, you know, if I could say to any leader of an organization, we're all leaders because we influence in all 5 areas, but if we could learn as Christians that the Bible talks about work and worship is actually the same word in Hebrew, it's the same root word, and it's only used to work the garden, plow the fields, until Moses crossed the sea, and they celebrated on the other side of that with worship, singing and dancing. But until then, it was never used as singing and dancing. And so if you can realize, it's all through the Bible, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But the place that's the most clear, we preach on Romans 12:2 a lot. Most people don't talk about Romans 12:1 or even 1 through 11. And without Romans 1 through 11, it's hard, but we don't have time for all that right now. This is when the pastor said, go find it yourself. This is the work I had to do. Okay. But Romans 12:1 says, so therefore, so you got to go back to 11 to know what it's talking about, but that's okay. But it says, let your whole body be a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. So everything we do is worship. How we do our emails, how we drive our cars, how we treat our kids, how we treat our employees. And so let your whole body be a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. That's everything. Everything you do, this is worship. Then it says, so be transformed by changing the way you think so that you can know the perfect, acceptable, pleasing will of God. And so I tell business owners, if you can get in your Christian ones, all of them eventually, because I don't think we've ever had a client that didn't eventually accept Jesus and flip their company towards kingdom in the last 25 years. But if in our minds, if we can start realizing everything we do is that, then all of a sudden our words, our body language, and our tone start lining up. And now our credibility goes through the roof because people believe what we say, because we sound like what we say, and we behave like what we say. So I would put what I'm about to show you through the lens of everything's worship. It is what lets us understand the perfect, acceptable, pleasing will of God, which Paul then lays out from Romans 12:3 on to about Romans probably 13:6 or 7. He just kind of lays out what that is for us if you just remove the numbers. But if you can do it through the lens of organization, influence, everything we do is worship, and then start thinking about if that's true, how do we remove the constraints that keep us from being successful in whatever sphere in which we live, work, or play? And here we're answering it around business, because that was the question, or even ministry, any organization. Well, we found that there are 9 common constraints. And one of those is leadership style or leadership culture inside of an organization. Okay. Some are command control and some are servant leaders. And we take it to 3 levels beyond that. So we start there, but then we take them to a 3rd, 4th, and 5th level. And I'm happy to show you all that if you want to see it. But when you get to the 5th level, it is what Paul lays out in Romans 12:3. And 3 through, I can't remember where it stops. Where he starts a new thought, I think somewhere in the midway through 13. But anyway, the second one is communication, both internal and external. And so we show people we have by the way, we have hard, fast, practical, implementable tools to overcome all of these when we go into an organization. And this was what I was talking about earlier, that I'm being asked to film that stuff too, to make it more affordable for people. But communication, both internal and external. An example is, 7% of what we communicate approximately is through our words, 38% is through our tone of voice, and 55% is through our behavior, our actions. Well, if the 93% don't line up with the 7, research shows you have very little to no credibility. And so if your words line up with your tone and your body language, then your credibility goes through the roof. And the example I use is most Christians don't have credibility. Why? We say, find Jesus, find peace, joy, gentleness, goodness, self-control, yet we don't walk those out. ISIS says we're going to kill Christians and Jews, and they kill Christians and Jews. So they have more credibility than we do.
Oh,
Because
Friendship, brother.
because
Woo!
I'm just saying that's just one example of communication. I've gone into companies and they'll put on their website, we're number one in the industry. And I'll go to them and say, you do know you're not number one in the industry, right? So I want you to change your website. You ready? We're number 3 in the industry, gunning for number 1. And I guarantee you, I'll show you how to get to number 1. But you gotta, so when I talk about it, it's internal and external communication. The third one is role clarity. And role clarity is not just job description, it's job description, it's what's required to do that job. It's the expectations and the reward and consequences if people can't do the job. But I've been into so many organizations, they don't have role clarity. Everybody's confused. No, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and there's all kinds of overlap, and all this is in the training. Another one is conflict and discipline avoidance. I think are you watching the Lake House videos right now? Is that what you're referring to with John? Okay.
Yeah.
So we use that platform to do our conflict resolution tool. And if you ever want to watch it, either Rod or either one can make that available to you. It's free. And Rod, just so you'll know, we're about to put 100% of our TL training on that platform. Okay, so it's gonna be way more available, 2 to 3 minute segments. So we're about to do that. And
I love it.
the discipline avoidance, most people think discipline and punishment are the same thing. And they're not. And we teach that discipline is the same root word as making disciples. And so with our children and our employees, discipline is training to elicit a certain pattern of behavior. And so
Wow.
we have a tool that we teach people that you never have to fire anybody again, ever. And you never have to keep anybody you don't want. And it's legalized by many federal governments. Even the Air Force started adopting it. And so we show that. And on this call, I'll just give you an example. I was raised in a church that said, spare the rod, spoil the child. But it doesn't, the word rod is actually in Hebrew, it's scepter. Okay. And scepter is something that the king and the judges wore on their belt. Okay. And you can, if you understand this and you read how David would raise his scepter, and when he raised it, it was a sign of authority. So spare your authority and spoil the child in the very next sentence. So discipline them in the way of the Lord. But there's nothing in the Bible that says spank your children. It's just not in there. There's nothing in there that says fire your employees. It's just not in there. Okay. And so if you discipline your children, you train them to elicit a certain pattern of behavior with this tool, you don't ever have to spank them. Because we show that when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change, children change, employees change, spouses change. I mean, and so we teach this hard, fast tool that people implement in their companies. They never have to fire anybody, and they never have to keep anybody they don't want, and they don't have to feel guilty about it because it's not punishment. Because punishment is about you, discipline is about them. And so that tool teaches the difference. And so conflict is when it's a one-on-one issue. Discipline is when it's if their behavior is affecting everybody relationally, or if they're underperforming in their role. And then we have a little grid. We show people how to put all their employees in one of these 4 quadrants and how to deal with it once they do it. Another one is lack of a clear vision, which we call VP-MOSA, which is vision, purpose, mission, objectives, strategies, and action plans. Most people either use a VP, a VM, or a PM. I basically ask 3 questions. What do you want to accomplish? What's God calling you to do? Whatever word you want to use. If you did it and you died, what is it? As an individual, same as a company, what is it you want to accomplish? The purpose is why. Why do we exist to do that? But the third question, most people never ask, and I think it's the most important one, and I just call it the mission statement. You could take any one of these 3 words and put them under any one of those questions. So, but the mission statement question is, what are you willing to do that others aren't willing to do to accomplish that vision with that purpose? And when people come up with that answer, things change in a hurry. Because now we got everybody, like everybody on our team, they know our purpose statement, okay, is to walk out everything we teach with unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, while being dangerously transparent. Okay, that's what we're willing to do that other organizations like us are not willing to do. And if they're not willing to do that, they can't be certified in our material. because that's the mission. That's what sets us apart. Okay. And then the vision is to make leaders who make leaders who make leaders to impact individuals, organizations, cities, and nations. The stained glass says to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples to impact, the mission statement to love and forgive unconditionally, like Jesus. That's the stained glass version. The public version, we don't put we're overt with it, but it's the same. And then the purpose is to teach, train, equip people to make leaders to make leaders. So we know our vision is to make leaders who make leaders who make leaders. What's our purpose? To train people how to do that in their organizations and across their city. What's our mission? We're willing to walk out what we teach with unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, while being dangerously, awkwardly transparent. We bring a lot of, when I preach in churches, the pastors are kind of shaking about 5 minutes in with the transparency. Another one is cash flow. I've worked with companies who've had too much cash, and I've worked with companies who don't have enough. And so that's a top 9 constraint. Another one is their policies, processes, systems, and procedures. And we teach a process on how to evaluate those. One of my favorite books, I probably read it 40 years ago, is called Sacred Cows Make the Best Burgers. And so lots of times, you'll go in an organization, and when they put that process in place or that procedure, whatever it is, that policy, it made a ton of sense. But it's just, I'm just going to use this word to go fast. It's just stupid now. I mean, back then it was the right thing to do, but we're still doing it. It makes no sense. An example, if back when we owned our big company, we had locations all over America and, Hong Kong, China, and we produced in other countries. But if you walked in any of our warehouses, you would see this painted on the wall. This is years ago. And it said the top 10 reasons for success. Number 1 is quality. Number 2 is service. Number 3 is continuous ongoing improvement. And number 4 is the other 7 don't matter. And so that was painted on the walls. All the managers had plaques, wooden plaques in their room, in their office that said, it's the policy, stupid. In other words, if it's broken, if it's not broken, break it. Always be looking for the next best thing. And so that's just kind of how we approached it back then, and we teach people that now. Number 8 is hiring, training, and retaining the right people. And we have a whole process of showing organizations how to be sure they're hiring the values they want in their organization along with the skill sets, and then how to train them in these things that are up in 1 through 7, so they want to stay in that company. We have companies we work with that had 35% turnover, and within a year we'd get them down to 9%. I've got one organization I work with. It's one of the top, just I ate there last night. It's really good. One of the top steak and seafood restaurants in America. And in that industry, if you've got under about 110% turnover, you're considered marquee. I mean, you're considered one of the best. It's normally around 200%. This organization is now around 45%. Now that sounds high to most people, but I mean, on average, they spend $2,500 to $3,500 per employee to hire a new employee. They got 1,000-ish employees. Think about not having to turn 500 of them over every year. You're just printing money to the bottom line. If you watch the Lake House videos, we give the statistics on gossip. If the average employee gossips 400 hours a year, think if you stop gossip, how much productivity you get, not even talking about the trust that you build. I mean, the trust you build probably gets you that much productivity. And then when you read the research on high trust versus low trust organizations, and now you stop gossip, so you build trust, they're about 75% more productive. And so when you start putting this practical stuff, where God says, feed the hungry, house the homeless, take care of the orphans, the widows, pray and fast without recognition, take care of the prisoners, returning citizens, take care of the foreigners in your land. You ready? And stop gossiping. He's got that in that list. It just doesn't fit, but it's there. He says, then my light will shine in your city. So since I believe kingdom principles are principles for me and you as individuals, and they're principles for our families, they're principles for our organizations. So if I, Ford Taylor, if you, Rod, if you feed the hungry, house the homeless, take care of the orphans and widows, take care of the returning citizens. We do a lot of our training for free in prisons and foster care programs. But my point is, it says do all that. And so if you as an individual do all that and you stop gossiping, guess what? His light's going to shine in you. Okay. If you do that in your company, guess what? His light's going to shine in your company because it's just a biblical principle. And so I can say that to y'all. And so when bankers ask me, I mean, I literally have bankers ask me, how do you get these results so fast? Well, it's real simple. We go in and shut down gossip. And, the Bible says, go one-on-one if someone sins against you. And if that doesn't work, take a witness or two and try again. If that doesn't work, bring them before the ecclesia, which is a whole nother training. And just so you know, ecclesia, the definition is assembly of decision makers. It has nothing to do with the local church. It never did until Constantine in the 320s and then King James. But we won't go there right now. It says bring them before a group of decision makers. You ready? Bring them before the church. And it says you ready? It says go one-on-one, take them, boom, boom, boom. All right. Or, okay. And if they can't, it says treat them like a pagan or a tax collector. Well, the disciples didn't have to ask Jesus what he meant. Okay. They saw Jesus go into the tax collector and say, you've sinned, you've stolen people's money. And he goes, well, what do I need to do? He said, pay it back. What did Jesus say? You're in. What did the pagan do, the rich young ruler? What do I have to do to follow you? Lay down all your stuff like these yahoos did. He said, I can't do that. He goes, you're out. For some reason, that's hard for us. It wasn't hard for Jesus. But he says, if they can't resolve it, treat them like a pagan or a tax collector. So either they're in or they're out. It's real simple. You ready? But then he says this, for what you loosen on earth will be loosened in heaven, and what you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. And I also tell you this, that when 2 or 3 are in agreement and I'm in your midst, you can pray and God will answer your prayer. He's talking about sin and conflict. Okay, it's all connected. You got to remove the numbers. All right. So all I'm saying is that when you apply those principles, stop gossip, guess what? His glory is going to shine. And guess what? So bankers, I'm removing evil spirits on day one because we all sign this thing called a social covenant. Needless to say, I don't say that to the bankers. Okay. I don't say that to the companies. I know that's what's happening. I know that we are removing demonic spirits by walking out that social covenant. Because Jesus says, when you do this, when you walk out this process, what's loosened is loosened, what's bound is bound. So we can loosen gossip, we can loosen bitterness, we can loosen rejection, we can loosen punishment. And when we do that, we're binding love and forgiveness and gentleness and kindness. Or we can loosen love and forgiveness in discipleship, discipline, and we can bind punishment and gossip and hate. So I know that these principles are doing that. So when the bankers say, how do you get so fast results? I tell them about the social covenant, but I don't tell them the real answer is we're taking the enemy out of play. And when we as a group take the enemy out of play, guess what? Our productivity goes through the roof. And the last one is once all these are in place, like I told you, the top 3 reasons for success. The third one is continuous ongoing improvement. How do you continue to sustain that? Where you've had this unbelievable growth, success, profitability, turnover down. How do you continue to improve that? And so that's the 9th thing that we show organizations how to do once we've kind of gone through getting these resolved. So Rod, that was a long answer to a short question, but that's
No, man, you got. There were so many nuggets in there, Ford. I'm trying to grab them all, like your one-liners that you've used before, but are so powerful. Like you were shooting these nuclear bombs in the middle there. It was fantastic, man. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we were just drunk from a fire hose, so I'm literally kind of a little bit like speechless. Fantastic. Maybe we got just a little bit of time left. I don't want to violate that boundary. So maybe just give a chance for people to react around the room. Any thoughts and comments from you guys? I mean, you can your questions. Yeah, shoot.
Well, I have to agree with you on the gossip thing because anytime I've worked with groups of people, you tend to talk about the company or other employees or something, and it has a very negative effect. And currently, I really work with nobody, and I'm all by myself. So there's really nobody to gossip about but myself, and that gets old. So I don't do it too much. And it really is a different effect in your work atmosphere. I've definitely got to agree with that.
Yeah, that's good.
I
Yeah,
think it's one of the most powerful tools of the enemy is gossip. I think it destroys nations. I mean, it's huge. So honestly, I'd like to be able to, out of all these conversations, I'd like to just sit down with you maybe sometime and use little nuggets of it and just go out with the team and play little pieces. Cause for sure, that is just a huge, huge one.
Yeah.
When you say, I heard that this person did that. So you don't know, but you're saying it anyway.
Right. Right.
And one person that was on the board of Hope Against Trafficking with me, she was amazing. She would stop that in its tracks every time. Is that what you heard? Let's go ask the expert. Let's go ask that person right now if this is really what happened. And what you're saying is bring it right to the person and find out if that's what's going on. And I really don't know. I've been asking myself that a while because it obviously happens in our office too. Is that the most effective way to do it? Then you're embarrassing the person, but is that okay? Like just, okay, you're saying that, let's go ask that, everybody, let's go in this room and ask that person what you're saying. Is that true or not?
Okay. So let me be real careful. I don't have the ability to embarrass you. If you choose to be embarrassed, that's up to you. Okay. But my point is they embarrass themselves. Okay. So here's the way I deal with gossip. So let's say Rod came to me and he says something negative about Melissa before I can stop him. So if he comes to me and says, can I share something with you about Melissa? Well, is it positive? No, I don't want to hear it. Go talk to Melissa. I mean, it's real simple. I just shut it down immediately. But if he throws up before I can stop him, and I would encourage you all, if you really want to go a little deeper in this, text the word social covenant to 53123. It's free. Okay. It's a 51-minute teaching that you'll get in 2 to 3 minutes a day over a 19-day period, or you can binge watch it. It's completely up to you. You don't have to, once you do it, it's 53123, or I'll pull up a QR code for you real quick too.
1, 2, 3.
Or you can just take a picture of this QR code. I'm not sharing screen anymore, am I?
No.
All right, let me go back and pull it up and then I'll share again. Or you can take a picture of this. Okay, of the QR code there. And uh-oh, what happened?
Take damage.
It went away. Try that again. Or I saw you trying to write it down. All right, is 53123.
That's what you text to, right?
You can text the word social covenant to 53123. Let me try it again. It should have shared. There it is. Is that it? Yeah. So you can take a there we go. There you go. So you can just take a picture of that and do the same thing. But it'll give you access to that, and you can actually pick the time, and every day you'll get a text telling you the next one's here. Most people binge watch it, but it's completely up to you. But then if you want to go back and watch it again, you'll see in there, to answer your question, is that we give people 48 hours if they gossip to us. So if Rod came to me and threw up on me, whose phone number is 248-765? Who is that?
Me.
All right. I just got notice that you signed up for it. All right. So here we go. So,
Oh
right.
man.
Yeah. Again, we're about to put all of our training on there because it is so much more efficient than any LMS thing we've ever seen. So if Rod came to me and threw up about Melissa, I literally would say to Rod, am I part of the problem? No.
That's pretty cool.
Am I part of the solution? No. Well, then you got 48 hours to go talk to Melissa and tell her what you told me, and I'll be checking with her in the 49th hour to be sure that you talked to her. Or you both can call me back and let me know that you've talked. I'm not going to tell her what you said because I'm not going to get hung up in your muck. But I am going to tell her that you're talking negatively about her, and I'm going to leave it up to y'all. Okay, so I literally give them 48 hours. When I'm working with a city, let's say Rod came up to me and he said that, I'd say, I got Melissa's phone number right here. Let's just call her. And I literally will pick up the phone and call her and say, here, talk to him. So how much gossip you think I hear?
Zero.
How much more productive am I than most people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if we all did that for each other? See, now all of a sudden Christianity gets credibility
Yep.
Cool, I like that.
because
I
we're
like that.
walking out what we say we believe, which is don't gossip about one another.
Right.
Just using that as one little example. So if you watch that little lake house thing, I think it'll help you. I'm happy to chat with you. I'm happy to give you all access to some of these tools. A lot of what I just showed you, a lot of those tools we just have never put on video. And I'll be honest with you, we charge a lot of money to go into companies because we make them a lot of money. But we also make TL available to lots of countries for free. And so if we do decide to put all the consulting stuff on the TL on demand platform, it's going to be so we can help a lot of people who can't afford to bring us in because we're still going to charge a lot of money when we go in. But a lot of people can't because that's how we fund everything else.
No, you got it.
So
Oh my goodness. I just recognize that that we're coming to the hour and I want to cover into time, but man, I know that we could spend the rest of the day talking to you for you're such a creative and humorous and wise speaker. Oh my goodness. But I do want to cover in time. So thank you for your connection. We will make sure that some of your contact information is for the guys to grab a hold of. We'll make this available. It takes about a week to push it up onto YouTube, and then you guys can look through it again and pick up some stuff from Ford. But man, you've been such a blessing. I can't even begin to tell you how much I praise God for the good and the bad in your life that's brought the man Ford to us today like this. And you're remarkable, man. I wish I had time just to ask you about some of the countries you've been to and some of the reactions you've had from leaders, especially in some third world environments. I would love to hear that. And so I hope we can cross paths again, man. I hope we can.
Where are you located at?
depends what day we talk. Sometimes it's 747 American, 727 Delta. No, we have homes in Ohio and Texas. So we go back and forth. We got a lake house in Texas and a home in College Station, so Giggle Maggies. And then we have a home in Cincinnati and a lot of our homes,
Go Buckeyes.
we're not there much because you can't be at all of them, but we do a lot of ministry and a lot of things happen in our homes, often with people we've never even met. I mean, and so we keep them, and as long as God continues to pay for them, we keep them so we can be a blessing to others. So
I also know that the Ohio chapter of the Chamber of Commerce is having a gathering up here sometime soon. I think that Robert's coming across and he's going to be there. Are you going to be bumping into those guys or going to that meeting at all or not?
wasn't that a couple of weeks ago, or they have another one coming up?
I think that was a couple of weeks ago, and I think they've got another one coming up, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I've not, I'm the chairman of the U.S. Christian Chamber board, and so I don't do much except run the board meetings and be available to Crystal. And so I try to stay on top of where these things are happening, but I didn't know there was another one coming up, but there may be. I can't stay in all the details.
West Chamber meeting set this year yet? Because I was at last year's, the
That
first.
conference, the conference you guys did?
Yeah, we're not going to do one this year. We are 100% planning on doing one in 2026 again.
Right. You did that in Florida, didn't you? Orlando, I think. You did that?
Orlando was last year, yeah.
Yeah, let me put my glasses. Who's saying you were there?
John.
Oh, good. Awesome.
That's where I met Crystal and several of the organizations that were there, Red Balloon and the Patriot
Phone, yeah.
Mobile.
and
Will you guys be doing it in Orlando again, you think, or will you move it around the country?
We're having those conversations now. One of the reasons Orlando, as y'all know, is good because it's got so many flights in and out all the time. There's so many hotel rooms. I mean, so we may stay there, we may move it. We've not made that decision yet.
Well, we'd like to throw the hat in there. Maybe Detroit is a good city, We'll just thought we'd mention that, as you're thinking, maybe
Well,
north and south. Let's do two
Yeah,
next year.
Let Crystal know, it's, I try not to go north of the Ohio River, but I do have a home just north of there. So, where I was raised, we thought anything north of Dallas was Yankee country, so.
Well, Ford, I know you got to fly here, so would you mind ending us in a word of prayer here? And thank you again for being so gracious.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm also on a board where we do this prayer covenant globally, and we've led about 60 million kids to Jesus with this covenant and parents, and now they're leading their parents. Would y'all mind if I pray that over us all? Would everybody be okay with it? Okay. Father, we love you. We worship you. We honor you, Jesus. We exalt you, your name, Yeshua, Yeshua, Yeshua. Jesus, that your manifest presence would fall in every room represented here. Your palpable manifest presence. Father, that the breath of your spirit would blow. Father, thank you for making each one of us one of your dearly loved children. Jesus, be the Lord of our life today in new ways. Reveal the fullness of your majesty at the Father's right hand. Honor and glorify yourself by living in and through each one of us. Change us any way you want. Wash us clean of every sin. Fill us with the power of your Spirit. Keep us from evil that we would not cause pain to each other or others. Give us the courage to be humble, the humility to be courageous. Continue to teach us to love and forgive unconditionally. Fill us with your wisdom, discernment, knowledge, and understanding. Give us an insatiable thirst, an uncontrollable hunger for you, your word, and your ways, that each one of us would be walking, breathing instruments of your love, grace, mercy, truth, justice, and righteousness. That one day, Jesus, we might be the answer to your prayer, that we could walk together as one and show others how to walk together as one, as you and the Father are one. And the world would look, see, and know that he sent you and that you sent us. And Father, every day that each one of us might be the answer to someone else's prayer, that we'd be the miracle that you would use in someone's life to show who you are, lead them to your Son. And somehow tonight, when we lay our heads down, Jesus, we might be just a little bit more like you than we were this morning when we woke up. And tomorrow morning, wake up just a little bit more like you than we are tonight. And Father, as each person on this phone, on this Zoom, that's represented, each individual, each marriage, each family, each ministry, business, organization, as they go hard for the unity in your Spirit, the unity in your Son, that you would truly command your blessing in every part of their lives, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, relationally, transactionally, financially. The Father, if they went in their prayer closet and said, please don't bless me, it's too much, you would say, sorry, it's just like oxygen. It's just like gravity. There's nothing you can do to stop it. So bless them as they bless you and others. Thank you for hearing every prayer, always listening, always pouring out, always taking in. We love you. We worship you. We honor you. We adore you. And we ask these things in the name of Yahweh, in the mighty name of Yeshua, and in the power of your Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Well, Paul, thank you so much again. Thank you guys for jumping online, man. We'll chat with you guys soon again. God bless.
God bless you all. Thank you. It was an honor to be with you. Knock them alive today.